Saudi Arabia's 500 billion mirror city, the problem no one saw coming. Did you know Saudi Arabia's The Line will use more steel than 20 Burj Khalifas combined? But that's not even the strangest part. This 170-kilometer mirror wall is so reflective that pilots are being warned it could blind aircraft from 10 miles away. But here's what engineers don't want you to know. The mirrored exterior is creating surface temperatures hot enough to literally cook birds mid-flight. The death toll, already in the thousands during testing phases. So how exactly are they building a city that's basically a giant solar death ray? And what happens when 9 million people move into a structure that's never been tested at this scale? If you're fascinated by engineering marvels like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We dive deep into the world's most incredible projects every week. Saudi Arabia has a problem. Despite sitting on 17% of the world's oil reserves, they're running out of time. By 2030, experts predict oil revenue could drop by 40%. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman knew the kingdom needed a radical transformation. But here's the twist. This isn't just about moving away from oil, it's about survival. The concept of NEOM, the futuristic mega-region housing the line, was first announced in October 2017. But talks of reimagining Saudi Arabia's economy date back over 2 decades. Previous attempts at diversification failed spectacularly. King Abdullah Economic City, launched in 2005 with a $100 billion budget, attracted barely 7,000 residents by 2020. It was supposed to house 2 million. The turning point came in January 2021. That's when MBS unveiled the line's revolutionary design, a 170-kilometer-long mirrored city, just 200 meters wide, stacked 500 meters high. No cars, no roads, no carbon emissions, everything you need within a 5-minute walk. Every resident within a 20-minute commute to anything in the city. Critics laughed. They called it science fiction, impossible, a vanity project. But Saudi Arabia had already secured $500 billion in funding. Construction contracts were signed with Bechtel, Ecom, and Atkins. By July 2022, excavation began. Over 2,500 workers were on site by September. The kingdom wasn't just talking anymore, they were building. Here's what changed the game. Saudi Arabia leveraged its sovereign wealth fund, the Public Investment Fund, worth over $700 billion, as the backbone. They convinced international investors this wasn't just a city, it was the blueprint for post-oil civilization, a testing ground for technologies that would define the next century. But political resistance came hard and fast. Environmental groups warned about disrupting migration patterns of endangered species. The mirrored walls would sit directly in the path of millions of migratory birds. Human rights organizations raised alarms about displacing the Hawaitat tribe, indigenous people who'd lived in the region for centuries. Reports emerged of activists being sentenced to death for opposing land seizures. The Saudi government pushed forward anyway. By January 2023, the line's foundation work reached 20% completion. The first residential module was scheduled for 2024, full completion 2030. Just 6 years to build something humanity has never attempted. What do you think about this ambitious vision? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you're enjoying this deep dive, give this video a thumbs up to help others discover these incredible projects. Let's break down what makes the line the most audacious construction project in human history. Picture 2 parallel skyscrapers, each 500 meters tall. That's taller than the Empire State Building. Now stretch them 170 kilometers long. That's the distance from Washington, D.C. to Philadelphia. Stack them with residential, commercial, and entertainment spaces. Squeeze them to just 200 meters apart. Cover the exterior entirely in mirrors. Now bury a high-speed rail underneath that moves people at 500 km/h. Welcome to the line. The city will house 9 million residents in just 34 square kilometers. Compare that to New York City, 3 million people spread across 783 square kilometers. The line achieves 23 times the density while promising every resident access to nature within a 2-minute walk. How? Vertical gardens, rooftop parks, and the entire structure designed around a central spine of green space. Here's where it gets wild. The line will run on 100% renewable energy. The mirrored walls aren't just aesthetic, they're functional. The city's vertical design creates natural ventilation. Air flows through strategically placed openings, eliminating the need for extensive air conditioning. In a desert where temperatures hit 50 degrees Celsius, that's revolutionary. Transportation, no cars, zero. Instead, an autonomous high-speed rail runs the city's length underground. It connects every neighborhood in under 20 minutes. Autonomous drones handle deliveries. The entire logistics network operates underground, keeping the surface level pristine. Residents live, work, and play without ever seeing a delivery truck. The line's AI infrastructure is next level. Sensors embedded throughout monitor everything: air quality, energy consumption, traffic flow, even individual health metrics if residents opt in. The city's AI, called the Spine, optimizes everything in real time. It predicts maintenance needs before failures occur. It adjusts energy distribution based on usage patterns. It's not just a smart city, it's a sentient city. Water, that's the engineering marvel nobody talks about. The line will operate the world's largest solar-powered desalination plant, producing 500,000 cubic meters of fresh water daily. Wastewater gets recycled at 95% efficiency. In one of Earth's driest regions, the line will be water positive. But here's the feature that blows minds: the line's sports stadium. It's not just in the city, it's built into the structure itself, carved between the two parallel buildings at the 250-meter height. Imagine watching a football match suspended 800 feet in the air, with desert views on both sides. Capacity: 50,000 people. The residential units, they range from compact studios to penthouse suites. Prices haven't been publicly released, but analysts estimate starting costs around $300,000 for basic units. The Saudi government is offering citizenship packages for high net worth investors who purchase premium properties. The line also promises something unprecedented: zero urban sprawl. Since the city only grows vertically and linearly, it preserves 95% of NEOM's land as untouched nature. This isn't just an engineering project, it's an attempt to reimagine urban planning entirely. The scale of this project is mind-blowing, but wait until you hear about the massive investment behind it. Before we dive into those numbers, which feature impressed you the most? Let me know in the comments. $500 billion, that's the official number. To put that in perspective, that's more than the GDP of Poland. It's equivalent to building 50 Burj Khalifas or constructing the entire interstate highway system 3 times over. Here's how the money breaks down. Phase 1, running through 2030, consumes $320 billion. That covers the first 40 kilometers and housing for 1.5 million residents. Infrastructure, the high-speed rail, utilities, and the desalination plant eat up $180 billion alone. The mirrored facade, another $40 billion. The AI systems and smart city technology, $25 billion. Saudi Arabia's public investment fund is fronting 70% of the capital. That's $350 billion coming directly from sovereign wealth. But here's the interesting part. International investors are contributing more than expected. Japan's SoftBank committed $45 billion. Chinese construction firms invested another $30 billion in exchange for building contracts. American tech companies, including Google and Amazon, are funding the AI infrastructure to the tune of $15 billion. Why? Because the line isn't just a city, it's a massive R&D laboratory. Every technology tested here can be scaled globally. Companies aren't just investing, they're buying front-row seats to the future of urban living. The economic multiplier effect is staggering. For every dollar spent on the line, economists project $2.70 in additional economic activity across Saudi Arabia. Construction alone will create 380,000 jobs. Once operational, the line will employ another 460,000 people directly. But there's a catch. Recent reports suggest costs are escalating. Independent analysts now estimate the true cost could hit $700 billion by completion. The Saudi government denies this, but leaked documents show budget overruns already exceeding 15% in early phases. As of October 2024, the line's construction has entered its most critical phase. The foundation work is 100% complete across the first 40-kilometer stretch. That's not just impressive, it's unprecedented. They poured over 2.5 million cubic meters of concrete in just 18 months. The structural skeleton is now rising. By August 2024, the first vertical modules reached 150 meters height. That's 40 stories. Engineers are adding one floor every 3 days. At this pace, they'll hit the full 500-meter height by mid-2026. But here's the bottleneck: the mirrored facade installation. It's slower than anticipated. Each mirror panel is custom fabricated, measures 4 meters by 2 meters, and must be aligned with millimeter precision. They're installing 300 panels per day. Over 45,000 workers are on site currently. That number will peak at 70,000 by 2025. Bechtel is managing the overall construction. ECOM is handling the rail system. Atkins is overseeing the AI infrastructure. It's the largest international collaboration in construction history. The high-speed rail tunnel is 60% excavated. Boring machines are chewing through rock at 30 meters per day. The tunnel isn't just for trains, it's also housing the city's utility network: water pipes, electrical conduits, fiber optic cables, even waste management systems. Everything runs underground, hidden from view. Testing of the AI systems began in March 2024. A 2-kilometer prototype section is already operational. It's monitoring energy flow, testing the autonomous drones, and simulating traffic patterns with digital twins. Early results? Power consumption is 35% lower than traditional cities of equivalent density. But problems are emerging. In July 2024, construction halted for 3 weeks. The reason? Structural engineers discovered the mirrored panels were warping in extreme heat. At midday, surface temperatures on the mirrors hit 90 degrees Celsius. That's hot enough to cause material fatigue. The solution? A new UV-resistant coating applied to every panel. Cost of the fix? $800 million. Delay to timeline, 4 months. The desalination plant is ahead of schedule. It went operational in January 2024, currently producing 200,000 cubic meters daily. By 2026, it'll hit full capacity. Water is no longer a concern. First occupancy is now projected for early 2027, pushed back from the original 2026 target. The Saudi government insists the 2030 completion date remains firm. Independent analysts are skeptical. They're predicting 2032 at the earliest for full completion. Let's talk about the elephant in the mirrored room. The line faces massive challenges that could derail everything. First, the environmental catastrophe nobody's addressing. The mirrored walls create what engineers call a solar concentration effect. Sunlight reflects off the mirrors at intensities 300% higher than normal desert conditions. Birds flying within 500 meters are getting disoriented. Some are literally being cooked mid-flight. Environmentalists documented over 3,000 bird deaths during a single week of testing in spring 2024. The line sits directly in the migration path for 42 endangered species. There's no solution yet. The mirrors can't be removed. They're load-bearing and critical for energy generation. Second, the human cost. Reports from human rights organizations document forced displacement of the Hawaiian tribe. 3 activists who opposed land seizures received death sentences in 2023. One, Abdul Rahim al-Hawaiti, was killed by security forces in 2020. The Saudi government claims relocations are voluntary and compensated. Leaked documents suggest otherwise. Third, technical feasibility. No structure remotely close to the line's dimensions has ever been built. The longest continuous building in the world right now is the Dubai Mall at 1.1 kilometers. The line is 170 kilometers. Structural engineers warn about thermal expansion. In desert heat, steel expands. Over 170 kilometers, that expansion could reach 50 meters. Joints and flexible connections need to account for constant movement. One miscalculation could cause catastrophic structural failure. So fourth, the psychological impact. Studies on high-density vertical living show increased rates of depression and anxiety. The line plans to house 9 million people in a space narrower than 2 football fields. Will people actually want to live there? Preliminary surveys show skepticism. Only 23% of polled Saudis expressed willingness to relocate to the line. Fifth, economic viability. The line needs 9 million residents to function efficiently, but Saudi Arabia's entire population is 36 million. Where are the other residents coming from? The kingdom is betting on immigration. They're offering fast-track citizenship, but demand remains uncertain. If the line sits half empty, the economics collapse. Maintenance costs alone for the infrastructure will run $15 billion annually. That requires massive population density to justify. Critics also point to Saudi Arabia's track record. Remember King Abdullah Economic City? It's a ghost town. Jeddah Tower, which was supposed to be the world's tallest building, has been stalled since 2018. The kingdom has a history of ambitious projects that fail to materialize. But here's the counter-argument. The line has already progressed further than any previous Saudi mega-project. Real money is being spent. Real construction is happening. Unlike past vaporware projects, the line has physical proof of progress. The question isn't if they can build it, it's whether they can make it work. If the line succeeds, the payoff is monumental. Let's start with the economics. Saudi Arabia projects the line will contribute $180 billion annually to GDP once fully operational. That's 20% of the kingdom's current non-oil economy. Now it'll create 460,000 permanent jobs in tech, hospitality, healthcare, and services. For a nation struggling to diversify beyond oil, that's transformational. The line's construction is already transforming Saudi Arabia's industrial capacity. The kingdom is building 15 new factories just to produce construction materials. They're training 80,000 workers in advanced construction techniques. They're establishing engineering programs in partnership with MIT and Oxford. The line isn't just a city, it's an education in modern construction. Globally, the line is forcing a reimagining of urban planning. Cities have sprawled horizontally for millennia. The line proves vertical and linear growth is possible. If it works, megacities worldwide will copy the model. Tokyo, Mumbai, Lagos, cities choking on sprawl could adopt linear vertical designs. inhabitants. That's billions of people living more efficiently. Environmentally, the line promises to be humanity's first carbon-positive city. It'll generate more clean energy than it consumes. Its compact design reduces transportation emissions to near zero. Traditional cities dedicate 30–40% of land to roads and parking. The line, zero. That land becomes parks, farms, and nature reserves instead. Technologically, the line is accelerating AI development. The Spine, its central AI system, is being developed in partnership with DeepMind and OpenAI. Breakthroughs in predictive maintenance, energy optimization, and autonomous systems happening at the line will cascade across industries. Healthcare AI developed for the line's hospitals is already being licensed to companies worldwide. Socially, the line promises radical equality. Every resident has identical access to services. No wealthy neighborhoods, no slums. Everyone lives within 5 minutes of schools, hospitals, and entertainment. If achieved, it would be the first truly egalitarian city in modern history. For Saudi Arabia's geopolitical standing, the line is a power play. It positions the kingdom as a leader in futuristic urban development. Nations are already sending delegations to study the line's design. Malaysia, Egypt, and Kazakhstan have expressed interest in building their own linear cities. Saudi Arabia is selling consulting services and exporting expertise. The line transforms Saudi Arabia from an oil state into a technology exporter. The tourism potential is massive. Once complete, the line expects 50 million visitors annually. That's more than Dubai. Tourism revenue could hit $35 billion per year. The mirrored exterior alone is already iconic. It's been featured in 200+ international media outlets. The line is free marketing for Saudi Arabia's transformation. So where does the line go from here? The next 18 months are critical. By March 2026, the first residential modules must be complete and habitable. That's the proof of concept. If people actually move in and the infrastructure works, the project gains credibility. If there are delays or technical failures, investor confidence collapses. Phase 2, extending the line to 100 kilometers and housing 5 million residents, is scheduled for 2030–2035. But that's contingent on Phase 1's success. If demand is weak, Phase 2 gets shelved. The Saudi government is already hedging. They've announced Trojena, a mountain resort within NEOM, as a backup priority. It's set to host the 2029 Asian Winter Games. If the line falters, Trojena becomes the flagship. Globally, the line's success or failure will determine the future of mega projects. If it works, expect similar linear cities in developing nations. If it fails, it'll be a cautionary tale for a generation. $500 billion is too much money to waste. The stakes couldn't be higher. The ultimate question, will people actually want to live in a 170-kilometer-long mirrored skyscraper? The amenities sound incredible. The technology is cutting edge, but humans have never lived this way before. It's a gamble on human adaptability. One thing's certain, the line is already changing Saudi Arabia. Oil revenues are falling, but international investment is rising. The kingdom is diversifying. Whether the line becomes a utopia or a colossal failure, it's forcing the nation to evolve, and that might be the real victory. What's your take on this mega project? Do you think it's worth the investment, or are the risks too high? Would you actually live in the line if given the chance? Share your thoughts below. I love hearing different perspectives. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.